Fantastic. Okay, thank you for joining me, James, for this conversation, really, just talking about the How2 platform and your experiences of using the platform. Can we start, James, just by asking a little bit about you and your experience so far?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is James Brough. I'm secondary trained. So I started my career teaching secondary maths. I now work in a college, a sixth form college, teaching GCSE resit maths and also A-level maths. So yeah, that's pretty much me up in terms of my teaching career so far.
Fantastic. So moving on to the teaching how-tos, can I just get your view on when the platform was first brought into John Leggett? What were your first thoughts about the platform?
Yeah, so when How2 first got introduced at John Leggett, we were using a different package for our teaching and learning, our CPD before that. And when we were introduced to How2, for me, it just seemed that the strategies that were included in there just seemed to make so much more sense. They were real practical strategies. There was no vagaries. It was all very straightforward and it made sense. And it was just instantly just things that you could take away and just put straight into your practice. So for me, that was a dream. I didn't have to go digging through mines of information to try and find out what I need to do. And the strategies were really simple to use. And having the visual diagrams and things of kind of the flow chart of using the strategy was just made it really simple to use. So for me, like the overwhelming impression of it was just how simple it was to get to grips with without much digging and diving into it.
Fantastic. And you were introduced to the platform, I think, in about February this year, so February 2022. How do you feel now about the platform after using it for that period?
Yeah, so really positive. I like how easy it is to collaborate. That's the big thing. So in terms of how I feel about teaching and improvement, I think it's really important that teachers have got the opportunities to collaborate. And obviously we all know that we're really busy and it's not always as easy as just being able to go in and drop in and have a conversation with somebody. We're all stretched. We all have a really high workload, but being able to just communicate through the app itself, sending notes to people, sending nudges through to people and sharing ideas and forming a discussion forum on there has just made it so much easier. So I think it's just almost become embedded in the way that I work and the way that a lot of the people at the college work now. It's just straight away we'll just go to it, and if we're struggling for anything, we'll use maybe the questionnaire, or maybe we'll just go through and just look at what other people are doing. But I think the greatest strength of it and the greatest thing that we're getting out of it is the collaboration element, definitely.
Fantastic. I was going to ask you whether you feel that others in the college are also feeling how you're feeling about the product, and you've answered that there by you are collaborating with your peers and supporting each other. Brilliant. Thank you, James. Next question from me, James, is about the techniques. So are there any specific techniques that you're using that you want to mention and talk us through and tell us about how they've gone?
Yeah, there's two probably that stand out. So one of them was one that I chose to do. So I went through and I looked for ways that I could improve my teaching to try and play to my strengths and the needs of my students. So the first one that I looked at was entry routines. So I obviously teach level 2, so GCSE and A-level maths. So two different battles really sometimes with students. So sometimes with the GCSE research students, having good entry routines is good to get the class settled at the beginning. If you build in that expectation through using the entry routine strategy, the students know exactly what to expect when they come in the room. It gets them on task quicker. And with A-level students, A-level maths students, it's really good to develop that independence. So I used it in collaboration with Retrieval. So looked at some retrieval strategies and worked that into my entry routine. My students know when they come in, there'll either be a task on the desk or a task on the board. And I got to the point where I don't know whether this is maybe just me being a little bit excessive, but I wanted to test whether it was embedded, whether I truly embedded it before I embedded it. So before I selected it as embedded on the app. So what I did is, and I did this with a GCSE class and an A-level class. So I set myself a challenge that within the first 15 minutes of the students entering the room, I wasn't going to say a single word. So the task was there. I sat there, stood up, wandered around, didn't say a thing, didn't speak to the students at all. And just to see whether I had truly embedded it. And I just thought it was an interesting experiment with varying levels of success. And then obviously that led me to develop it further. As you would have probably expected, the A-level students took to it a little bit better than the GCSE research students. But yeah, now I think it's pretty much across the board now. My students know what to expect when they come in the room. So that was the strategy that I self-selected. And then I was given some feedback from my area lead. He suggested that I maybe look at using the strategy of using mini whiteboards for key questions. I love questioning, but I was more into directed questioning rather than mini whiteboards. So I took the mini whiteboard strategy and I used it. It didn't quite work how I wanted it to, but it gave me a framework. So I adapted that strategy. So I would get students to work on a particular hinge question, a question that was important for me to assess their understanding. And rather than having them hold up the mini whiteboards and do the whole kind of show me thing, I got them to do their working out on their paper, and then they would put their final answer on their mini whiteboard and just leave it on their desk. So as I'm circulating the room, I can go around and I can pick out and see. And then there isn't a situation where the students are just sat waiting to hold their mini whiteboards up. If they've done it, they know what they can do next. And then I can come around and see. So I was just coming around and just checking. And if there was any mistakes on there, I could have a quick conversation with them about that, or I could point them in the direction of somebody else. So yeah, I like that strategy, and I like that I was able to adapt it. I didn't feel like it had to be stuck to so rigidly. It just gave me a framework, so that was good.
No, that's brilliant. Just starting with entry routines, that's a technique which I really want to advocate for. It's a fantastic and a very easy technique to embed, but it does so much for you, doesn't it? It gets them into that routine. It builds that rapport as students enter your classroom, and it allows you to identify any issues that students may be having as they're entering the classroom as well. So yeah, entry routine is fantastic. And on the second technique that you mentioned, I think that's really important to note, that the techniques are not there. They're not set in stone. They are there for you to tweak and adapt. Can I ask then, any of the features, have you used any of the features on the platform, like the notes, for example, when you're using the techniques, when you've adapted them?
Yeah, so we've been encouraged through our program of teacher development of using the notes in particular. So I pretty much, every time I feel that I've embedded a strategy, I will post a note on that strategy, just explaining my experience with it. And as a standard kind of thing at the bottom, pop in and see me, drop me an email if you want to come and have a look, that kind of thing, because we really want that culture of collaboration. Yeah, notes, especially when I feel like I've embedded something. Nudges, quite a lot have been used within department. If we've got a particular focus within our department, our area lead will probably send out a few strategies in a nudge, and then we'll try those strategies, see if we can get something out of them, and then we can create that discussion in our department meetings about it and things like that. Yeah, notes and nudges quite a lot. And yeah, collecting things in sets, actually, I found quite useful, particularly for sharing with other people and being shared with me. So as an institution, we have some sets that align with our priorities for improvement as well, which has been quite handy. So yeah, particularly for new teachers that come in, they know exactly what the priorities are and what things they should be looking at.
Yeah, fantastic. It just brings that consistency in, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah.
Can I move on then to impact? What impact have you seen from using the platform and using the techniques?
Yeah, so I think the true kind of impact I've seen is the improvement in the attitude of my students. So with the entry routines in particular, it's no secret, particularly in sixth forms, that level 2 classes can be quite problematic. It does tend to be in sixth form colleges where most of the behavior concerns and the attitude and things like that can crop up. Not all the time, obviously, I don't want to stereotype, but it can be the case. And it's often being commented on about how settled and engaged the level 2 students are that I teach. And I think without having those strategies that I've put in place, the entry routines, the desk work, and having those expectations, and even things like work in the room, that's another strategy that I've used and that's been particularly important with my level 2 students, equally important with my A-level students, but for a different reason. With level 2 students, it's more to monitor, focus, and make sure that there's that engagement, whereas with my A-level students, it's more for checking understanding and different strategy. But yeah, I think my students have seen the difference and they'll feel the benefit. Our level 2 results for GCSE resit were significantly above national average, and I doubt that would have been as possible without having these strategies that help us manage the focus and the engagement of the students.
Fantastic. No, thank you. It sounds like you're doing fantastic stuff for the platform, James. Last thing from me, any advice for teachers that are using the platform, that are new, or have been using it for a long time and have become a bit disconnected from the platform?
Yeah, I try and log in as much as possible just to try and, I think it's quite interesting to see what other people in the institution are doing. I think that's really important, getting on and checking what other people are doing. So getting on the skills exchange, seeing what strategies other people are working on. And if your time allows, go and speak to those people. I think that's really important. I think it's so important to just stay on top of your own development. And I think this is good because it makes me responsible for it. I'm accountable for my development here. So I know exactly what I'm working on and I can see what other people are doing as well. And that kind of gives me, sometimes if I see somebody else working on a strategy that I'd not considered before, sometimes it will make me look into it a bit more. And if it's a teacher that's getting a lot of praise around the college for doing good things, then obviously I'm going to go and look and see what they're doing and try and steal as many ideas as I can. We know what this profession is. It's all about stealing ideas, isn't it? If I can do that from the teachers that are doing good things, and this platform just gives me the ability to do that because I can go and see exactly at a glance what everyone else is doing. So I quite like that idea.
That's fantastic. Thank you, James. And thank you for speaking with me today about the platform.
Yeah, no problem. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers, James. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.